All right.
Just reach out. I'll be
So,
here.
so this here we're recording, and now we're posted up on the YouTube channel so people can hear and see us from anywhere. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Sherry, for accepting the invite on short notice to come and talk about the youngsters. We want to go over the shorties here. So we got
to do what we can, Sion. I'm not stressed, but I'm extremely concerned about what is happening for our kids, particularly, but every child, our kids, particularly in the school system. We need to change. So. Yeah, we need to change the instruction. We need to change the amount of tools that teachers have in their toolkit. Okay, we need to change the way students are being taught in the classroom, and we need to make sure that we catch a lot of the ones that have already slipped through, because a lot of them have already slipped through.
Now I'm gonna be taking notes. So what you just said, I hope you can remember that to say it again in a minute. So just know what you said was powerful.
I probably will.
It's the frame. No, that's a frame, and I want to get the frame. But first, I want to make sure they know who you are and how we met first. So I've known your mom, and people would tell you from when I first branched out from the west side to the south side, your mom been the consistent one since 2004, connected. And we took our first trip ever to St. Louis with Sister Montana, and that was the kickoff. That was the kickoff of NBCU travel. You know Sister Montana? Yep. So I barely knew your mom, and here we were staying at Montana's house in St. Louis. But from that, it went well, and we've been connected ever since. So that is a lot of years. Me and your mom. Jewel Dixon is legendary. No joke.
She is
legendary. Now that lady rushes, and she drives like a bat out of H.
That is my mama.
Yeah, I used to tell Jewel and she a woman, so she gets away with it. When the police pulls over, she smile, and then she's a
pretty woman. She just ain't woman. My mom was gorgeous. My mom is just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, me and Joe, we talk about, we can imagine what she was like as a teenager and young adult.
I remember as a kid watching my mother get ready to go out on a date, both when she was single and when she was with my stepfather. And I was literally mesmerized, standing there and watching this woman get dressed, put on her makeup, put on her face, and then put on her clothes. And I would just stand there and stare at her.
How old were you though?
I was 5 to probably 9 or 10. Seriously, I just loved watching her do what she did. And then when I hit the teenage years and, it was my turn, I was like, I'll pass. I don't want to do that. I want to do that.
The rebellion, the flip side.
She was always trying to get me to put on lip gloss and put on something to pretty me up and put on a dress. And I was like, no. After all that time watching her, when I finally got my turn, I was like, no.
Well, it's something, because what we're about to talk about go be centered around the upbringing, because K through third grade, where they at mentally. So I'm glad you brought that up. But tell our audience who you are and what do you do for a living, and your business as well.
Okay, my name is Sherry Lucas Hall. Lucas is my maiden name. I'm the daughter of Harold Lloyd Lucas from Chicago's Bronzeville side. And
legendary.
The daughter of Jewel Dixon from Altgeld Gardens. And I'm born and raised in Chicago. Went to Northern Illinois University to get my undergraduate degree. Also went to Loyola. Left and came to Georgia in 1999. Wow. So I've been here all that time. Started education in 2004. That's when I first entered the field of education. Now, I had always wanted to teach, but I took a detour because I'm like, teachers don't make no money. And I had a kid at 20, and I'm like, I can't afford to be a teacher because they don't make enough. So didn't decide to do teaching until my youngest went to school in 2004. Got in the school and the bug hit me. It hit me like it went through and kind of like, you know how, what's his name? The man from, not the Avengers, Wolverine. You know how that lead went through his body? That's how the bug of education went through my body. I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I can't not do this. But it had been calling me since I was a little girl.
Right.
And so I decided, okay, yes, I'm gonna do this. And so I was a parapro for 4 years and then went to get my master's degree and became a teacher after 4 years. So in 2008, I actually became an unofficial teacher with a provisional license. By 2010, I had my master's degree. Taught in the schools for 10 years as a teacher, and then came out for a reason that I would discuss, but you have to ask the right questions. And I decided that I could best serve my community by opening my own tutoring business. And so Designed to Teach Tutoring Services was born in February 2020, just as the pandemic hit.
Designed
to Teach Tutoring Services. And if you type the words in, it'll come up on Facebook. I have a whole Facebook page.
So that evolution, and I always tell people, when you come from Chicago, you're a unique breed. So that's a resume credential for you right there. Growing up in the projects, that's an extra credential. So that's 2 credentials for you.
I didn't grow up in the projects. I grew up around the projects. My mom and dad grew up in that space.
Okay.
By the time I was born, they were on the south side of Chicago. I grew up on 80th and Escanaba. I went to Hyde Park High School.
Okay. So,
all
right.
we
pull a little bit back.
Yeah, grew up going to the South Shore Country Club. That was my hangout as a kid. I played my first solo at the South Shore Country Club at about 8 or 9 on the flute.
So music too. Okay. All right.
I love music. Love music with my whole soul.
So before we get into, now that we kind of went into who you are, tell us about the education system in America from your vantage point.
I'm not thrilled. That's the shortest answer I can give. I'm not thrilled after spending now, mind you, this is from the perspective of spending 14 years in one school in Georgia. Okay. This is what I saw. I saw that there's a lot that teachers were not given. And this is from this point where I am right now. There's a lot of things that teachers preparing to teach were not given. And one of the things that I'm looking at specifically is the science of reading. It's the research and it's a body of work that's over 40 years old. Over 40 years old. Now don't worry about what I am. I was gonna tell you my age, but we ain't gonna do that. I'm older than that though, I know that. And to know that this kind of knowledge has been existing for over 40 years and it has not been given to educators before they go into classrooms. It's to me a crime, because if you have that kind of research available that can improve what you're giving students to serve them, to make them good citizens, to make them contributing citizens, if you have that kind of information and you don't provide it to your students, you're committing a crime. Because you're not.
Wait a minute, I thought you said teachers. So I thought you meant the teachers aren't equipped. You're saying the students aren't equipped?
No, what I'm saying is an unequipped teacher creates an unequipped student. Don't you think?
No, but I'm asking you, saying that it's some research that's not given to, I thought I wrote down teachers. So is it teachers or students?
The science of reading is a body of work that's supposed to be provided to teachers.
Science, okay.
It's called the science of reading.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's research and scientists and everything have been working on this for over 40 years. It's the information that educators need to go into the classrooms to be effective.
Okay.
And I got my degree in 2010. I started in 2008. I never heard a word about the science of reading in the 2 years I was in graduate school.
Okay. Okay.
So I went into the classroom without it.
Okay.
But it existed. That's the problem. It existed.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And I spent 10 years in a classroom, in both kindergarten and first grade, preparing kids to go forward to, the next grades without the information that I really would have needed to be more effective for my students, especially those students that struggle to read.
Now, so help our audience. So when you say this science for reading that is held back from teachers, let's talk about the culpability. Is it the principals? Is it the school district? Is it the politicians? Like, who's culpable for this?
It's not the teachers. The teachers don't know the information. The principals don't know the information. Most of the district's head don't know the information. It's called the science of reading. Okay. And it is a body of work mostly by researchers and scientists, okay, that tell us how the brain functions and how the brain processes words. okay? If that information is over 40 years old, then at some point, those people that go into schools to be professors, to teach teachers, have got to have heard of it. They should have at least heard of it at some point.
But just because I hear about something, what platform and vehicle do I have of getting it into the appropriate hands? You know what I mean? So if I'm a professor, you know?
But if professors are trained to teach educators, right? Then I think that they're supposed to be able to equip educators to go in and be strong educators, to grow and be strong at what they do. If the science has told us how the brain processes words, okay, and that there is an entire system in the brain that processes words, then those professors should know about that science that tells us how to process those words, because educators are getting ready to go in the classrooms and teach children how to read. They need that information so that they can.
So this is good timing. Right now, state legislatures are saying that they must teach transgender education. So isn't that where the culpability is? That the legislators tell the school districts what to and what they cannot teach. Would you agree?
If legislators are not in the space to learn about the science of reading, how are they going to do that?
They do it already. Like, they just decided that we must be taught about LGBT. Forget the fact that Black history was legislated to be taught, and they don't do that. Now we got to learn about. So you get what I'm saying? I think I was listening to you to see who's culpable, and I hear that from a state legislature standpoint, that they should be voting on what the curriculum should be, and they should take input from you guys.
I agree, but they have to be knowledgeable.
They got an education committee. That's what they should. The education committee should do. That doesn't
mean the education committee is doing their job. Bottom line is
that's what I was looking for. Whose fault is it? That's what I wanted to hear. So
those that are passing those laws clearly are not doing their job to do the research to make sure that everything is available in terms of not knowing what's possible and what's available, so that teachers can be prepared the right way to go in and do what they to serve the community well. So yes,
it would be so we there now.
Right. It's legislature. But the thing is, I've been here in Georgia calling out legislatures about reading here. That's what I've been doing for like the last probably year. Like, what are we doing? We know the science is there. We need to be making some changes so that this starts trickling down, and not trickle. It needs to flood down. We're tired of trickling. Trickling is dropping a lot of kids out of school. We have 43 million functionally illiterate Americans. That's the number, 43 million.
Well, we coming on that because now that we kind of got that frame, now I want to ask you, since we kind of know who should be creating the laws so that the academic world can do their job, do you think from a political standpoint that, let's take the two-party American system, that this is where some people are important and some people are not? What's your take on, when you talk about government, it's two parties and each party got their philosophy on education? Give us your perspective on those people from politics, like politics role in education from your vantage point.
The only politics for me, the only way politics is involved is if they have representation of educators on both parties. Bottom line, you need to make sure that you have, if politicians are going to legislate for, our citizens, right? They have to know what's in the best interest of our citizens. If you're talking about legislation in education, then those same politicians have to have people in education that know about what's going on in the field and know about how it's affecting students, so that those educators in those parties, can provide information to the legislators. The legislators are responsible for making change.
So let me approach it a different way so I can get, on the Republican side, they believe in choice. So they want the money to follow the students. And on the Democrat side, they say they want to make sure the school districts have the money, the cities, so that they can choose what's best for the students. That's what I was trying to get from you.
Honestly, you believe it doesn't matter if what's going on inside the classroom isn't, affecting those students. None of that matters if the tools that educators have in the classrooms are not going to address and meet the needs of the student. It doesn't matter whether the money follows them or whether the money stays in the school districts. If the educators in the classrooms are not prepared to meet the needs of the students in the classrooms, doesn't matter where the hell that money is, excuse me. Doesn't matter where
Well, watch this, Sherry. Wait, let me get your thoughts on this. So if I'm in a failing school and I want to take my child out of that school and put them in a more functional school, if I stick with the Democrat model, I must stay there because of the laws and rules. Whereas with the Republican version, I get to take my voucher and go to a school that is doing what you're saying.
You're trying to get me to choose.
No, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I just want your input.
It sounds like you're trying to get me to pick sides. My concern is that the students in the classroom get what they need to get what they need from the educators in the classroom to address the need of the individual student. Okay, so if a parent has to pull a child from the school, then the option should be available for them to take the money that goes with that child. My problem right now, though, is that too many states don't spend enough money on the students individually. So it doesn't matter if you pull the money out of school or not. The money that comes with the child isn't enough.
Okay, that's a great point.
I've looked at some of those numbers. Some of the numbers that people are spending on in the expenditure on each student is not even enough.
You heard about Winnetka and Hinsdale and some of the rich school districts? What's the difference between them and inner cities from your vantage point?
They've got the money. They have the money. Most of their communities, this is a very big issue that goes way back to issues of redlining and how we were restricted to where we could live. Exactly. Let's be real about it. A lot of this has to do with history and where we stand as a people in the communities that we were forced to live in or limited to, because that's where the money is. Right. So when you have us in inner cities where, we were stuck to certain locations like the West Side and the South Side, that's just Chicago. You have limited funds in those areas anyway. Schools like, and Evanston, this whole Evanston thing with them talking about doing reparations, really?
Right.
I'm sorry. No, it ain't enough. It ain't enough because I know about it.
Right, it's a start. Right.
It is a start, but you have to think about what the long-standing history of the limitations that were placed on us, and sometimes the starts are really small. After 400 plus years, I heard the number was like 529 years so far. That's a long time. Your starts need to be bigger than just the,
Yeah. It's better they doing something than nothing, because some people they ain't doing a damn thing.
That's true, but we also don't want to settle for just the little, the little conversations, and that's the other thing. They want us to accept that. Let's have a talk about it. No, it's time. We didn't have enough time talking.
Right. Totally with you. So now that we got that frame going there, let's talk about the brain of a K through. Well, let's go through each grade if you don't mind. So what should happen with kindergartens? How should they start school? What type of home environment is necessary to be successful?
Every child, and I'm not just doing kindergarten, because a lot of what can happen for a child, it goes through K and 3 all the way through. Every child, it's good to expose them to reading. It's a wonderful thing to expose them to all kinds of books and reading to them, but you have communities that don't have access to that. So we have communities that will need support in that, but support from their local libraries, support from, community centers, that will provide opportunities for kids to have access to books, okay? And have access to people that will read books to them and discuss books with them and discuss words with them. That's K through 3. I'm not limiting it to just K, because this is the foundation that K through 3 needs, all of them. So that whole exposure to books. But the thing is that people have to understand that just reading to a child is not going to teach that child to read. It's never going to do that. Reading is not a natural process. Okay. Reading is something that has to, language, we speak easily. Kids grow up and, we talk to our babies, and as long as we're not doing baby talk, they come up talking, they're saying all kind of stuff, right? I have a 4-year-old granddaughter who has a very good vocabulary, and it doesn't surprise me because we talked to her. We've talked to her since she was a baby.
Right.
But, we don't learn to read as naturally. That's not a natural process. That's a brain process. It's a more
intentional. You say you got to be intentional.
It has to be explicitly taught and explicitly trained. Okay. Your brain has to, some kids really need the extra effort of explicitly training their brain to process words. And then some
Okay.
kids are just natural readers. I really believe that I was a natural reader. I really don't believe that I ever had a problem. I cannot remember a day when I did not love to read. And that's from first grade on. From first grade, that's just all. I mean, but you know, again, my mom and daddy, you know, that's what it was. You know, that I just loved it coming from the two of them. But reading to children, you know, is great, but that doesn't teach them to read. So you have to expose them to books and vocabulary and spaces where you're talking about, having conversations about books. And then, you know, for the lower levels, you have to make sure that they're understanding about sounds and words, not necessarily letters first, but sounds. Start with, and this is phonological awareness. So we're talking about, you know, the beginning sounds of words, mat and moose, music and money. You know, I play a game with my 4-year-old granddaughter. We choose a sound to start a word with, and we play a game that has us repeating sounds that start with that, words that start with that sound only, until she changes the sound, and I let her choose it. She changes the sound, and then we play. And my 5th grade granddaughter has to give a more challenging word because she's in 5th grade, and so I'm expecting her to give words that are more 5th grade style, like gigantic. If we're doing G, you know, but it wouldn't be gigantic. It would be gardener, because G initially has the G sound and not the J sound. They don't learn that first. So playing games with them, playing sound games like that with them, alliteration, you know, and everybody was dogging Dr. Seuss. But Dr. Seuss, you know, I know what he was earlier, but some of his earlier work served a purpose, especially for children that are learning how to rhyme and alliteration words. He has books for that. You know, we can't eliminate, nobody else has written a book for it yet. You know, so you don't eliminate it until you have something that, you know, it's like, you know, quit your job when you don't have another job lined up. You know, he has written books to cover alliteration. Nobody else has done that yet. And when they do it, I'll pick up some other books. But until they do, he has some good alliteration books, you know, rhyming books, alliteration, teaching a child to tell you how many words are in a sentence. I want some water. How many words are in that sentence? You know?
That's new. I haven't heard that before. That's good.
Yes, that teaches them that, you know, there are, you know, when you say something, there are a number of words in that sentence, so that when they get ready to write or read, they understand that, you know, okay, I'm going to write what I want to say to somebody. And in writing that, I've got to think about how many words I've got to write, right? And making sure those words make sense. So I don't say want a water drink, you know, and they look at me like, what? Huh? That doesn't make sense. You know, so you teach them early to count the words in their sentences to make sure that they're, you know, putting all the words that they need, and understanding that words are separated to, you know, and they all have meaning. Again, I can't express how important it is to make sure that they learn their sounds before you connect letters to those sounds. You teach them the sounds, that every word that they speak has a sound at the beginning. And within that word, there are sounds. If I say the word man, you know, there are and 3 sounds in the word man, right? If I say the word igloo, there are 4 sounds, even though there are 5 letters. Okay, teaching them that understanding, because you teach them the pattern of the 2 O's that say ooh, even though it's, you know, 1 sound. You know, teaching them to understand the sounds and what they're doing. You know, so that's for all grade K through 3, all of them.
Now, what about, because you've been speaking the reading, what about math? Is math important right now?
Absolutely.
History?
And there, you cannot connect, you can disconnect math from reading, because they are different processes. And let me say this, that writing has to be connected to that reading. So if you're teaching children sounds and you begin to connect that, you know, that the letter part, you've got to make sure that you're teaching them how to write those sounds. As soon as you start teaching them that sound that they were making for man is connected to and M is represented by the letter, by the grapheme. Okay, you've got to make the grapheme phoneme connections for students. That has to be strong, and it has to be first. But as far as math, there are foundational things that teachers have to teach, that kids need to learn in math. One of the things is representing numbers. You know, just you know, the number 3. You know, what it looks like, This is 3. There are 3 things that they can count. You can pull the things in their room, so in their own space, so that they can count those and learn to recognize what the number 3 looks like, what the number word 3 looks like. That's something they should learn. That's how you connect reading to math. Teaching them, what the numbers represent, and then that there's a sequence in the numbers. They should be able to count to 100. My 4-year-old granddaughter can count to 30. I've taught her with these things called math racks. I have a giant one of this. This is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I mean, you can make them yourself, but it's called a math rack, right? So, and it teaches them, individually, you can teach them individually how to count by using these little, the little beads. You can make one I used to do it in my classroom. I would use pipe cleaners and those hair beads and put 10 of them on there and have the kids count them. Teaching them things and using the things in their space helps them to learn. And you can do that in a conversation on a Saturday morning when y'all get up, you talk to them about cooking, about measuring. You talk to kids as you do things in their regular everyday environment. That's how you connect math to what they live. Now
I like that. So what about history? Not right now, or?
Well, no. You definitely, one of the things, especially for our kids, we have to teach them our history so they know who they are and where they come from. Okay. And reading's a part of that. You can do that in reading. You cover reading and history at the same time.
Yep.
It was easy to for me, again, because I love teaching, it was easy for me to make those connections in my classrooms to reading and history, reading and science. For me, math and science. There's always a connection. That was for me. I can't speak for everybody, but I see the connections. History is a wonderful way to connect history to reading for our kids. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Oh, big time now.
Yes.
So now let's tie this in though, because I know you didn't want to separate. But what about this? Based on what you've seen, are children leaving preschool going into kindergarten, are they met with a certain amount of challenges that they got that 1 year under their belt? Now they go to first grade. Tell me the distinction you've seen entering school, kindergarten versus entering first grade.
Okay. And the funny thing that you say this, because I spent 1 month after all that years and all the 14 years in elementary school, I spent a month in a daycare center. So I was working, that's why I say it's perfect segue. I was working with 3 and 4 year olds. Okay. And what I saw, this is Georgia. Again, I can't speak for any other state because I don't know what everybody else is doing. What I saw for Georgia is not preparing their pre-K teachers well to translate what 3 and 4 year olds need to learn before they head to kindergarten. And I say this just from looking at the tools that I was using in the daycare center and what was actually required for teachers to do during the course of a day. There's not enough time spent on letters and letter sounds. It's like you're fitting it into the space of just providing daycare. And that's what I saw.
Explain that though, Sherry. Do you mean they letting them sleep, or what do you mean just daycare?
Just the activities that go on. It's it's a lot of play, but there's not enough incorporating actual letters and things like that into the play that they're doing.
Okay.
And I know that people talk about how play is important, and yeah, it is. But when you're turning 4 and that this kid is getting ready to head into kindergarten, there should be a little bit less play and more preparation to get him ready to go into kindergarten in a setting that's going to be a traditional school system. Unless you homeschooling them. Okay.
No, that's important.
There should be
what
something
you just said,
more
let's
important.
play at 4 years old. That's important.
By 4, because from what I'm understanding, you can begin to tell whether a child is going to struggle or not in school by 4. Those kids that are not talking by 4, those kids that are having problem with grasping a pencil or writing tool, those kids that are having trouble expressing themselves by 4, they're already showing signs that they're going to struggle in school. That's what that is. And so if you're not working with them, you're not going to see that at 4. They're going to wait until they get in kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher's going to be like, what the heck? What? I got to do this. I got to fix this. So we've got to do a better job of preparing those 3 and 4-year-olds to go into a school setting to actually be ready to learn. And what's going on here in Georgia doesn't look like that to me.
Well, while I still have you there, can a 5th grader help that 4-year-old? Can a 5th grader help the 4-year-old?
If the 5th grader if the 5th grader has the foundations, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But I know that there are 5th graders that don't have the foundations at all. So how can a 5th grader who's struggling himself or herself really be able to give, to a 3 or 4-year-old, unless they're just, unless you're playing foundational games, that might work.
Okay.
But
So
you have 4th and 5th graders that are still really struggling.
Well, now let's go to 1st grade. So let's say, for instance, that kindergarten, that 4-year-old wasn't prepared. That in kindergarten, teacher got to do 2 things: got to do current and backup, catch up. What happens when that kindergarten goes to 1st grade and they're a little bit behind?
Without those skills, bottom line, you've got to give them to them. You have to start where they are.
But Sherry, it's not happening. So I'm saying, like, what's some of the? Do they start acting out now? Is this where they
start acting out at 4? I had a kid in preschool tearing up shit. I'm gonna say it just that way. This kid was tearing up shit at 4 in a daycare center. Now we also have to consider that there are some issues outside of school that these kids have. Some kids have issues and traumas that are way outside of school. And what I learned is that trauma changes the brain. And so, some kids come in with issues that they've experienced even at 4, and they bring that into the classroom. That's any child, whatever they experience outside, they're going to bring it into the classroom, and it has to be addressed. Okay. So
let's hold that, Sherry, because that's the last part of our conversation. Okay. Those being raped, those being shot. Let's hold that. Because that's a whole nother.
Yeah. So anyway, when they come in with those issues at 4, and you got that stuff going on, you've got to address the behaviors so that you can teach them. And the problem I had with that student was addressing the behaviors, but what I saw in him is that he had an interest in certain things. And those were the things that could kind of bring him in. Okay. He was interested in books. He loved books. And so you give him a book and let him talk about it. Let him talk about it. Don't feed it to him. Let him talk about it. Let him tell you about it. And then he would tell stories, so write the stories down, give them an opportunity to express. And sometimes they'll tell you, exactly what's going on. But when they come in at 4, by the time they get to 1st grade and you've got those same behaviors, you've got to find what interests them.
Now that's the golden nugget. I've made a note. That's a golden nugget for a teacher, a parent. At that age, you gotta find it. Now, what about
an interest?
God gave everyone something that
they have an interest early. Mm-hmm.
So what about that 1st grade is about 7 years old to 2nd grade? What's happening there?
The same stuff that was happening in 1st grade.
But their body's starting to change now, right?
But in terms of learning, nothing really changes. If you have, there are certain things that they're supposed to be doing, learning wise by 2nd grade. But if they're struggling with all the foundational stuff, they're not even doing what they're supposed to be doing by 2nd grade.
Right. Okay.
You're still working on some of the earlier foundational skills that they were missing in order to get them to the 2nd grade level. You can't skip over that stuff. You can't just start with the 2nd grade level things expecting that they're going to know it. They're going to figure, no, they're not.
See,
in fact, what's going to happen is, and it happens in 1st grade, those kids that are starting to struggle will start to get headaches, will start to get stomach aches, even if they're not real. They'll start to come in and feel just nauseous. They don't know why, they want to sleep. Because they cannot do the work that you're trying to get them to do, and they don't have any supports. Nobody's talking to them. Nobody's hearing, hey, this ain't working for me. And because they're little, we don't listen to them.
Big time.
All of the stuff that they do shows us and tells us something. We have to stop ignoring those behaviors.
That's the second big nugget you drop, because all this behavior is coming from somewhere. That's powerful. That's powerful what you just said.
They don't make it up. It's not made up. When they tell me I got a headache every day, I got a stomach ache every day. I don't feel like, when they're doing that every day, something's wrong. There's something behind that. And this is, I don't kick myself anymore, but I did when I first discovered it. I taught for 10 years. And in those 10 years, I had a lot of students that had issues with reading and had those, I got a stomach ache, headache, had the behaviors in the classrooms. And I had no understanding of the brain science. I didn't know how trauma affected the brain. I didn't know that reading changed the brain. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so for 10 years, I was in the classroom, trying to help these kids, working really hard, but not really being able to pinpoint what it was. Yeah. And so now that I know, I say it often, we've got to address, when they start with those behaviors, we have to start addressing it, look at it, find out where it's coming from, because 9 times out of 10, it's what they cannot do that's causing the behaviors. And they don't want anybody to know that. And nobody has listened yet.
So and let's talk about the big one. What if they being molested? What if they being beaten? What if they watching their mom and daddy get beaten? Let's talk about your experience with that.
Kids talk. What parents don't understand is that kids talk, they tell. A lot of times it's through their behavior, but sometimes they will say things that make you go, what? Or they're doing things that make you question, why is this 6-year-old or 5-year-old saying this, doing this? How the heck do they even know? Okay, so my thing is, as an educator, we are mandated, reporters. That's what we're supposed to do. But just reporting an issue doesn't change it for that child. So we have to have some kind of involvement with the counselors and somebody else in the community that's going to be able to address the need for those children. Because if the child has a need, then the family has a need. You can't ignore, they come from somewhere. They don't come to our house. They don't go home with us. They don't come in with us. They come from somewhere. So there's got to be some kind of way to connect that need for that family to the school, because that's where we see it first.
But that's where
I can't hear you. Okay.
Additional support. And let's talk about your business, because that's essentially what's needed when there's a break, when there's a dysfunction, right?
Yeah. I mean, as a tutor, as a person who tutors, yes, but I can't provide that community, that social need that, that families and students will have. I can help the family with the child and their learning needs, but, unless I have connections to those in the community that work, to help families, there's not a lot I can do in that respect. I wouldn't mind that connection at all, being able to, at least direct a family to some place where they can receive support.
Well, but here's the thing with that, and I tell people this: who you work with matters. Mm-hmm. Listening to your background, how you love education, is different than someone that's just looking to do something and we get them the funding and they don't really give a damn. So talk about that. What have you seen where a passionate person makes it more difference than a paid person, just a paid person?
I mean, I came out of the classroom in 2018. Okay. And the whole process going through, what I was going through with my district. And then I started the business in 2020. I mean, I can't speak to a lot of that. I don't know. I know my experience. I know how passionate I am about it. I know where it sits for me. I know that I've seen people that probably shouldn't be teaching. Yeah, I know that I've seen people that, probably shouldn't be in this work. You hear people talking and you talk a good game, but you ain't walking nothing, but that's the only, that's the space I'm in. I can't talk to another space. I know what I love.
Right. I just will ask for your vantage point, because when you speak, you're speaking from all these years of experience. And that's what you take comfort in, knowing you've seen some stuff. You've done some stuff.
And I know why I'm doing what I do. I know exactly why. There's no question for me why I do what I do.
So people need to know how to reach you. They need to know how to connect with your spirit. And tell our Chicago people something too, because that's where your parents from. So speak to those two groups real quick.
Chicago will always be my home. I can remember spaces. The water was always a place for me to go and find peace. And so I was always at Rainbow Beach. I was always at South Shore Country Club when I grew up. Lakeshore Drive is my ride. If I go to Chicago and I have an excuse, I can make an excuse just to ride Lakeshore Drive. That's just my thing. Bronzeville is beautiful to me because I know that history. I can be reached though on my Facebook page. Again, it's Designed to Teach Tutoring Services, the words all spelled out. I have an email that's designed to teach 2019@gmail.com. That's my email address. But they can message me on the Facebook page. I'm a Chicago girl that lives in Georgia. But what I know is that the South is my root. I know that now. I didn't know that before. I had no idea. Virginia and Tennessee and Arkansas, those are my roots. I've got to find those people. That's what I need to do. I need to look for them because I know that there are other people out there that are related to me, that are by blood, my family. So that's my plan is to go look for them, honestly.
Well, I want my audience to know people like you because of your history and your connections, your mom and daddy. Putting money into your business means, number one, we honoring our people that's paved the way. It means that we got a passionate person who knows what their purpose is in life.
Absolutely.
And then you believe in supporting and circulating inside the culture. That's a trifecta.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, that is my work. And honestly, I realized when I finally started the business, I realized that my daddy had been doing it my whole life. My daddy had been doing that my whole life, and I had been watching him. And so now I'm in the field of education, wanting to do exactly what he had been doing all those years that I watched him. So I'm proud of my dad. I love my mom. You're about to get me to get emotional. I'm not doing it. I love what I do. I will do this until I cannot do it anymore. And I'll take any kind of funding I can get. I'm not gonna lie. We as a people, because I think every other ethnic group look at us and shake their head. Chinatown, Greektown, Little Italy. We need to circulate money with each other. And when you got someone passionate about it, it's a no-brainer. So I just wanted to make sure you got your number out there, your website, the Facebook group, because people need to connect with you. I'm gonna promote you. So I just thank God for you, and thank you for this short notice jumping on here to help us gain some insight. And you dropped 3 strong nuggets, sister. So thank you. Thank you, Saya. Thanks for the opportunity. I didn't realize that I was going to actually be live.
It's recorded too. It's recorded too. So now it's gonna be on YouTube forever.
I'm glad I pulled my hair up too.
You look fine. You look fine. You look fine. Thank you, Queen. I appreciate you. I'm gonna make sure you and my wife get connected too.
I'll talk to her. I did. I gotta call her back. But I want a chair.
Hopefully multiple. So we're gonna work that out. I appreciate you. Thank you.